Hello, Julie here and welcome to my YouTube channel. Thank you for being here with me today. I'm going to create two cards today that use the same techniques on both cards, but they look very different. I hope you enjoy it. I'm going to create my own card bases for both of these cards. I've got a 12 by 12 sheet of smooth white cardstock here. I'm going to cut one piece that is 5 1/4 inches by 10 1/2 inches. This will be scored at 5 1/4 inches on the 10 1/2 inch edge and folded in halves to create a 5 1/4 inch card. I'll also cut a 5-inch square panel that will be the front of my card. I'm going to work on the 5-inch panel. I'm going to start using this Woodware mini scented bloom stamp. I'm going to use my Versamark embossing ink to basically cover this whole panel with flowers. I can't get my stamp to work in the corner of my stamping platform because I want the flowers to overhang the edge of the panel. So I'm just using some repositional tape to hold it in the centre of my stamping platform. Now I'm going to move this stamp around and stamp so that it basically covers the whole of the background panel. I'm using my powder tool to make sure that I only get the embossing powder where I want it. Once I've got all of my stamps onto my panel, I'm going to use some white embossing powder and heat emboss all of those flowers. I use the same procedure to stamp and emboss 2 extra flowers on a piece of white cardstock. I'm going to use these for my focal points. To colour my panel, I'm going to use my blending tool with these scrapbook.com domed foam applicators and my distress inks. I'm going to use mustard seed, carved pumpkin and a candied apple. I'm going to start with the lightest colour, the yellow, and work my way up to the red. I will apply each of these colours and then come back and apply the lighter colour over the darker colour to blend the two colours together, trying to get as smooth a blend as I can. I don't use this technique very often, so I'm no expert at ink blending, but I'm going to try and see if I can get a nice smooth blend. Once I'm happy with the blend, I'm going to use a soft clean cloth to wipe over the panel so that any ink that is on top of the embossing will be wiped off and the white will become white again. I use this Woodware countryside stems stamp and use the same technique with the embossing powder to create some foliage to go with my flowers that I'm going to be using for embellishments. To colour my embellishments, I'm going to use distress inks and a water brush. So I'm going to do like a watercolour on these embellishments. For the leaves, I'm going to use cracked pistachio and twisted citron. And for the flowers, I'm going to use mustard seed and carved pumpkin. I don't want the flowers to be that dark, so I'm only going to mainly use the mustard seed on the flowers and just a little bit of the carved pumpkin in the centre of the flower. You'll notice also that I don't completely cover the flower with the yellow. Once I'd finished colouring my embellishments, I used my scissors and fussy cut them. I didn't think you needed to watch that. And now I'm playing around with the placement for the flowers and the foliage. Once I've decided where I want to put them, I'm going to use my liquid glue and attach them to the front of the card. For my sentiment, I'm going to use this LDRS Happy Birthday Stack stamp. So it stamps all of these sentiments at once, and then I've got the matching die that I will use to cut them out. The matching die is number 8116 and by, of course, LDRS as well. So I'm going to stamp these with my Versamark ink, and then heat emboss them using some black embossing powder. I haven't used this stamp before, so I'm just going to wipe it over with a baby wipe and then a microfiber cloth to dry it off before I actually use it. That way I'm hoping to get a nice crisp image. I use my anti-static powder bag, of course, but unfortunately I don't always remember to do that, so lucky I did this time. As I said, I had the coordinating die for those sentiments, so it's called Sentiment Stack, and it coordinates with several of the stamps that are available in the LDRS range. So you buy one die and you can use it with lots of sentiments. Very, very handy, I think. Anyway, I'm going to take this off to my Big Shot and cut it out, and I'll be right back. So that gave me 11 sentiments. I chose one and attached a bit of chipboard scrap to the back of it because I wanted it to be, well, I used some chipboard to attach the bottom flower, so I had to put chipboard behind half of my greeting so that it would sit flat when I attached it to the front of the card, because it overlapped that flower that was sitting on some chipboard. So there we have our first card for today. So once again, I've created a 5 1/4 inch card with a 5 inch panel to go on the front. I'm using the same stamp to stamp all over my 5 inch panel, but this time, instead of heat embossing with white heat embossing powder, I'm going to use gold. You'll find links to all of the products that I've used in the description box below, or something similar. Instead of using multicolours on this background, I'm just going to go with a dark blue, and I've chosen chipped sapphire. I'm going to blend it into the background the same as I did for the last one. As I said, I am pretty new at this ink blending business, so it does take me a bit of time to get it nice and smooth. When I had all of the colour on, I once again wiped over it with a dry cloth. Once again, to create my focal point, I'm using the same stamp and the same embossing powder, but this time I'm going to stamp and heat emboss onto some vellum. I used a different stamp for the foliage this time. I used a Heartfelt Creations Botanical Rose stamp, and I just used the leaves from that stamp set. So once I had those all prepared, I fussy cut them, and I'm now getting ready to attach them to the front of my card. For my sentiment, I chose another one from that set that I previously cut, and using that LDRS set. Then I'm going to decide where I want to position my flowers and my sentiment on the front of my card. When I'm attaching these, I'm using my art glitter glue, but I'm being careful to try and make sure that the glue only goes behind the areas where the embossing powder is, so that you don't actually see the glue through the vellum. You can actually see a bit of discoloration because of the double layer of vellum, some places, like where the leaves tuck in behind and where one flower sits on top of the other, but you can't actually see where the glue is. Anyway, I'm going to attach these to the front panel that I'd created, and then I'm going to use my glue to attach that panel to the front of the card. So a couple of new techniques on here for me, things that I haven't done before. I haven't done ink blending before, and I really enjoyed that. And also the embossing resist, I haven't done that before, so two new things for me as well. I hope you've enjoyed watching my video and learning along with me. I think I can still use a bit more practice in the ink blending, but I will persevere with that. So thank you for being here with me today, and I hope you will come back and watch my next video when I post it. If you're not already a subscriber, please click that subscribe button.